me saying that our government is completely useless and filled with absolutely incompetence from the ground up, and not just people in the main ministries like, Priti Patel, Michael Gove, Gavin Williamson, failing Grayling of all people, still bizarrely is offered and given jobs for some ungodly known reason. But it's not just the people on the front. It's also the people in the back as well. On Wednesday, we went over that live stream when we were on GB News, and we had that Conservative literally basically saying that there were people who felt like that they shouldn't have to wear a mask because they didn't want to wear a mask. And I'm like, come on, guys. We're still in the midst of a massive pandemic. We are going into a third wave of the Delta variant, and we are creating a perfect petri dish for which to create other variants. And you haven't heard of the Lambda variant yet, but you soon will. Trust me on that. And as I said before, this should be called the Johnson variant, and this should follow Johnson for the rest of his life. Not only just Johnson, but the rest of the Conservative Party, because they have proved that they are completely 100% unfit to govern this country ever again, in my opinion. And if you don't believe me, and you're in another country and you are in disbelief in what is happening here, well, you are about to be unleashed upon just another level of absolute bewilderment, just of how stupid this government really and truly is. But before we do get into that, please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button. And also down below there are links to my Patreon page, as well as a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can indeed buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do support the channel that way. And of course, please do remember to keep wearing your masks and doing social distancing. That's probably a lot better advice than you will ever get from the government. So, on with today's article, which comes from The Independent, and the title really says it all. Vulnerable people are being sent out to die. Don't believe me? Just read the government's advice. So, I'm catching up with an old friend for pizza soon, but that could be a bit more complex now than simply finding a place that can accommodate a pair of wheelchair users without the management acting as if doing so requires an exercise in quantum mechanics. I'm classified as clinically extremely vulnerable to COVID-19 because I have type 1 diabetes. That is the autoimmune disorder kind that can't be fixed with diet. I need regular injections of insulin, and combined with my age, it has landed me in the shielding group earlier this year. For shielders like me, the government's 19th of July Freedom Day, which will allow, among many other things, anti-mask louts to breathe their virus particles all over me whenever I enter a supermarket, doesn't feel very free. From the uncompromising promises, in particular, of Freedom Day, represents something akin to the film and scenes from the Purge franchise, which dictates a world where people are allowed to kill each other, no questions asked, for just one day of the year. But fear not, for the government has drawn up some new guidance for how we modern day leapers can keep ourselves... lepers. So we modern day lepers can keep ourselves safe and free from circulation of a virus that could still pose a threat even if we're double jabbed. No vaccine, of course, is 100% effective. There is more than 3,000 words of this advice, and it's just very strange. It's just very strange sort of advice as well. And the problems start almost as soon as you start reading it. There is a paragraph which gets going by urging us to follow, at the minimum, the same guidance as everyone else does. That sounds sensible, but it's basically irrelevant because from the 19th of July, there's almost no guidance about some fuzzy about some funny pleadings to perhaps think about it being a bit careful because, there's still, a killer disease making merry out there. You may wish to think about particularly careful about the additional precautions you might wish to continue to take. It continues, as is the case of course, I may wish to think about whether I might wish to say, look both ways before I cross the road. Or is that I may wish to think about whether I might wish to avoid pumpkin spice lattes from Starbucks because they taste bloody awful. I'm thinking about the former because it's not certainly because that sentence is woollier than a herd of Highland sheep in the middle of a cold winter. May and might as well have been the words of the day in Whitehall when all this was written, because they're all over the place. It makes me feel less like the advice than an exercise in arse covering. Perhaps I may wish to continue thinking about particularly careful about taking precautions when I meet others. I, quote, do usually do that when I meet in order to reduce the risk of catching or spreading COVID-19. That includes considering whether I've been vaccinated. My friends have all been vaccinated. He's an Astra like me. But what's about the waitress or waitresses we're obviously going to meet? Am I supposed to ask them whether they've been double vaxxed before they serve us? But while socializing looks very complex, it's where it comes to work that things get really icy. Because if your boss wants your immune-compromised body back in the office, then I'm afraid that's where it's going. Employers are encouraged to talk to their clinically vulnerable workers so they can explain the measures being taken to ensure that their work is COVID secure, says a click-through to the health and safety executive, which is about reassuring the owner of an angrily barking dog, telling you that he hasn't bitten anyone for the last month or so. But there's a big difference between an employer being encouraged to do something and being told that they have to. It seems as if the HSE can get through as if workplaces aren't COVID secure, as can local authorities. They can even prosecute. The trouble is, by that time they're getting around to do it, it may very well be too late. The harsh reality is, as disabled charity Scope has pointed out in its reaction to the publication, there are no concrete protections for vulnerable people at work. Not at all. If you've been a good employer, you'll be fine. You might very well be able to continue to work from home, as will I be doing. But if not, it's just tough luck. As for worries about the absence of mask mandates, and whereas you what that might mean for shopping for essentials, you, quote, may well want to shop at quieter times. Well, duh. Which Cambridge PPE graduate of a civil service minister came up with that gem as a replacement for removing things like proper internet shopping delivery slots? Where's the badge here that says his advice is about as flagrant a violation of the 1968 Trade Descriptions Act I've ever seen? The cold reality is that this is nothing more than a windy way for the British government saying that it literally just could not care less about us, so we might just want to cross our fingers. We're on our own, and people are going to die as a result. And I am on fully 100% board with that guy. The government's advice on this is just absolutely awful. And I know someone who is, again, shielding because of her condition. It's very, very worrying. Very, very worrying. I mean, that advice makes no sense to me at all. And I'm not shielding for a deadly condition. But anyone else who is, that advice doesn't make sense. Doesn't make as they said, it was just full of and maybes, perhaps, buts and maybes. How about, instead of, going shopping at quieter times, just, making sure you get those, shopping hours booked in or online shopping. Just because the quote, it's Freedom Day, doesn't mean that in reality. The virus is still very much out there. The Delta variant is going to rip through this country in a couple of weeks, and we could find ourselves on the brink of, essentially, as many scientists out there are putting it, Britain putting the world at risk for doing this. And as we said just a couple of days ago, our government has basically surrendered lock, stock and barrel to COVID. And people are going to die as a result. So, thank you for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page, as well as a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And please remember, please do continue to wear your masks. Please do remember to think about social distancing when you're going out. Please, please, please do think of others while you're out there. So, as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you all next time.